What is up, Jabronis? JJ back here from Run Pure Bets, talking a little live college football. Saturday, October the 9th. Looking to pick up right where we left off last week with a little sweep action. I'll tell you what, I'll be very happy to go 2-1 with the plays I'll give out today. With that in mind, Friday night's play, Charlotte and FIU didn't get home yesterday. It's tough because I watched back the video I did, which I know might seem weird, right? But sometimes I look at the way I'll break down a game and relative to the notes and whatnot. And I really liked FIU to score points. I guess in hindsight, I could have just taken their team total over, which would have been a sweat as well, but it did get there. But look, by the end of the day, I was quite surprised how good and efficient Charlotte's offense looked. And it's easy to say, like, you look at the games, you're like, oh, well, Charlotte's just a better team, and there's a small number on the road. But for me, this offense hasn't shown anything on the road. And I know FIU's defense hasn't been good, but it was just a good spot for FIU. It didn't get there, but look, I liked that spot. I felt like FIU had a lot of big plays. They just they allowed Charlotte to go up and down the field almost every possession, which was a bit of a lapse. Or tilting, if you will. But needless to say, if you guys remember last week, we lost the Friday night vid and then swept these live plays. So hopefully, maybe we repeat that. Hopefully, So what's going on, guys? I think we have a quite an interesting slate of games here, right? Alabama, Georgia back on the slate again, and I feel like I'll touch on those games, I guess, a bit later on, but it's almost getting to the point where you kind of feel like you just can bet them every week, right? I mean, not to say that the number doesn't matter. Of course, it always does, but they've been incredible. Now, granted, I want to be clear, I'm not betting them this week, and I actually don't bet a lot of top teams in the countries year by year anyway, because normally their value is just sapped, and you either are getting a bad number on them, or you're going to find yourself regretting why you would fade like the best teams in the country. But man, Georgia's defense looks unbelievable. And look, Bama, looks great again. Bryce Young. It's just every year they just kind of turn out talent year after year under Saban, so it's pretty impressive. I got a few unique games today, and a pretty popular one in the SEC. Let me just say a quick hello to folks: Sloppy Joe, Kevin Richmond, Best Pie Eater, Jonathan Bassa, Sloppy Joe again, Kevin Richmond again. Look, I appreciate you guys checking in as needed. You see, you guys understand. Best Pie Eater gets it. You might hear my voice is a little raspy. It was a little bit of a party last night. So voice is not what it once was. But that's fine, right? You wake up, you take a shit, you drink some coffee, maybe you take an Advil, and you're back, right? You can even see like my complexion's out. Like, I've had better nights or worse nights, if you will. Okay, so what's up, Bobby? Even though most of the time you don't bet those. Yeah, but feel free to ask on any games you want, Bobby. I'm going to talk on some of our Run Pure folks wanted me to talk on Texas, Oklahoma, Iowa, Penn State, Texas Tech, TCU, and Marshall, Old Dominion. So yes, I will get to those games as well. But as always, I'll start with talking on my three bets, and then we can navigate the show from there. So first bet today, 12 o'clock, Ole Miss, Arkansas. Really like this over 66 minus 115. That's at DK in New Jersey. And like all these plays, it's for quite a few reasons. And this is I'm actually good to go here to 68. So that's at DK, by the way. So this line is so interesting to me. And it's even saw like some steam down. Look, both Ole Miss and Arkansas played the two best teams in the country last week, right? In Alabama and Georgia. And now they draw each other. Now, I do believe if this game was played last week versus this week, I do believe this total opened 70-71. I think you had two outputs from both these teams that were very poor. But again, they were against the best teams in the country, the teams that are going to meet each other practically or more than likely in the national championship. Look, we know Matt Corral at home is a much better quarterback than on the road, and Ole Miss is one of the fastest tempo teams in the country. And look, Arkansas under Kendall Briles is by no means a slow team, and they've been quite efficient, especially against vulnerable defenses. We get KJ Jefferson returning to his home state for those into narrative season. And Matt Corral just needs to now consistently pad his stats to keep any flavor of Heisman hopes alive. This game has the classic makings of an offensive back and forth. As long as turnovers get limited and this doesn't become like a field goal fest, I think we get there fairly easily, actually. So before the Georgia game, Arkansas was averaging upwards of 35 a game, and now draws the speed fest in Ole Miss. And before the Bama game, Ole Miss was averaging 50-plus per game. And while Arkansas has a decent defense, they won't be able to slow down the Rebels entirely by any means. Overall, I think we're getting a soft number here after both teams played. The two teams likely to meet each other in the national championship where their offenses looked slow or below average, if you will. And it's deterring this number a bit off of where it really should be, and that's why I really like the over here. So over 66 minus 115, Ole Miss, Arkansas, DK in New Jersey. Okay, I don't really, believe it or not, I don't really like any of the 330s. It might be a spot where I try to live bet. I don't like anything in there. But again, I could talk on some of those games if you want. Next game I like here is Western Kentucky versus UTSA. Under 71. I'm just trying to see where, because I know I got 71.5 yesterday. I'm trying to see if we got a book that I can get a better number on. Because DK has 70.5. I mean, it's 1 point. It's not the biggest of deals. But I want to see if maybe I could squeeze you guys a better number for one of these other books. What time is that game? That game's at 7. I mean, why are there all these games in like weird ass order? Okay. UTEP. Imagine me, like a piker, looking for games before the show. Okay, so yeah, so FanDuel 71.5 minus 110. So that's what I got at DK, but DK is now a little different. What's less? Okay, so 71.5 Western Kentucky UTSA. I know this might not be a game that hits a lot of people's radars. Woof, this number feels high. So it's for the opposite reasons of the game I mentioned before. So like, for instance, I feel this game should have opened like 66, 67, whereas, Ole Miss opens 66, 67. And then instead this opens 71, which is really why I like this under. This game really comes down to me on Western Kentucky's pace. So the Hilltoppers do not play fast football by any means. Now, if you look at their plays per game, you'll see that they rank like 40th or 41st in the country in plays ran per game. But that is heavily padded by their most recent Michigan State game where they had 94 plays in a game where they were down 5 scores, I think, and they really tried to speed themselves up. Also, Michigan State kept scoring on like 3 plays. So, Western Kentucky, while they didn't win time of possession, they were kind of forced to play faster with how they had the football anyway. And look, 94 plays in the this team before last week was averaging like sub 60 plays per game. So yeah, the 94 pads them for sure. And look, Western Kentucky has plenty of issues on defense, right? But I'm not completely sold on this UTSA squad either. Look, Frank Harris has been great, and this has been a well-balanced attack, and some good wins on the resume too. But UTSA isn't exactly a team who enjoys shootouts either. UTSA hasn't had one game that's actually gone over this number, and I expect Western Kentucky on their side of things to do all they can to slow this game down offensively. As they definitely don't want to what happened to them in the Michigan State game to repeat, right? Control clock is Western Kentucky's best recipe for victory here, and they are favored. And look, for me, I kind of lean Western Kentucky's direction, and I know that it's kind of like an easy called surface level handicap to go the other way, right? Because you look at it, and I just want to make sure we still got the 3.5 number. So it's down to 3. I actually, I lean the Western Kentucky side, and it has more to do with I'm not a UTSA guy. Like I know they have a few decent wins, and Western Kentucky's had a decently tough schedule as well. But overall, this game should be a good back and forth, scoring wise. Where I think Western Kentucky holds some value being at home with a small number. But after digging into this game, it makes more sense to bet the under. Primarily because as long as one of these two teams doesn't go up 3 scores and has to speed up the other, I think you get a good back and forth where both teams really try to do all they can to win this game, play a safe version of football. Now, UTSA definitely is more of a risk-taking team. Expect them to go for like the 4th and 3s, 4th and 4s at midfield. Whereas Western Kentucky, I expect to play more conservatively. This is a borderline must-win for this team, all things considered, and they can win this game. And I think that the recipe for them to win is to slow the game down. And in doing so, UTSA is very happy to play their games in the 20s, even the 30s or mid-30s at the high end. Again, there's not one total for UTSA that's gone over this number, and I get why it is this high. You get Western Kentucky's bad defense. UTSA's defense is questionable at best. But from a time of possession standpoint and play clock standpoint, I think Western Kentucky really slows this game down or tries to, and that's going to impact scoring. So once you get some like crazy turnovers at weird spots or bad spots, I do think this gets under the number. And I think that inversely, this should have been 66 and Ole Miss should have been 70. So I'll take advantage on both in the opposite directions. Okay, so did I type that in? Hold on. UTSA versus. Oh, please. UTSA versus Western Kentucky. Under 71.5 minus 110. And that's FanDuel, just so you guys know. But I'm sure that number is consensus in multiple spots for you. Okay, last but not least for me. Again, another game that's probably not going to be super popular. But I have a decent amount of value here. UTEP Southern Miss under 45. Got that DK in New Jersey. I know it's never fun betting unders in this mid-45 range in college football. But as I looked at this game and dug deeper into it, I just have no idea where points are going to come from with any level of consistency. So I'll start with Southern Miss, who's once again a bottom feeder in the Conference USA or in Conference USA. There's a stretch not too long ago where the Golden Eagles were actually like the cream of the crop in this conference, but certainly not these days. Against D1 opponents, Southern Miss is averaging about 13 points per game, and nothing in this offense looks pretty. To their credit, their defense has actually looked okay. And when we talk about pace, this team crawls. Good news for them is that they play a team in UTEP who actually plays a lot slower than even them. UTEP's another team that against D1 opponents has averaged about 25 points per game, which is good and a certainly upgrade from Southern Miss. But also, like, who have they played? 3 of their 4 D1 opponents have been Old Dominion, New Mexico, and New Mexico State, teams that have combined for a record of 4-12 and are some of the worst defenses in D1. Their other game was an FCS opponent, and then Boise State, who's also having a down year. They didn't do anything against Boise State. UTEP's offense is a bit of a mixed bag. They love to run the football, though, and bleed clock. They're also not very good at it. What's been good with UTEP, though, much like Southern Miss, has been their defense. There's been some bright spots. When I say good, relax. I'm not saying this team's elite by any means. But now they draw a lifeless Southern Miss squad, which will help. For me, this game is simply the fact that I get 2 teams that both play much better defense than offense, 2 teams that love to bleed clock, 2 teams that aren't efficient by any means in the red zone, or efficient by any means with 4 quarters of good offensive football. So this total should be in that 41-ish neighborhood. So I'm happy to grab 45 under here. So again, under 45 minus 110. DK in New Jersey. May the odds be ever in our favor. Okay, so let me just type that in for you. UTEP Southern Miss. UTEP versus Southern Miss. Under 45 minus 110. Again, that's DK. Okay, so let me begin to talk on some of these games. Okay, so we have so Texas Oklahoma, which starts in a bit. Yeah, it's a few different things. So first of all, Bijan Robinson, what an absolute stud, right? He's been incredible. He's probably, this might sound a little silly, but he's probably a borderline dark horse to win the Heisman, as crazy as that might sound from the running back position. Texas would have to win out for that to happen, and it'll have to start today. Oklahoma, though, right? Woof. This team, you could argue, this team's 5-0, but you can argue this team very well could be 1-4. Yes, 1-4. This team has had a lot of close games. Maybe we scratch out the Nebraska game because Nebraska never really looked like they were going to win that game. But woof, Kansas State last week, Western Virginia's a battle. Tulane week 1 was a battle. And they play an FCS opponent. I'm just not in love with the Spencer Rattler that I've seen. And he was one of those kids that they did the Netflix documentary on. Where they've done actually a bunch of them. Justin Fields was in there. I'm trying to think who else was in there. Those documentaries are pretty cool. As the best high school kids in the country. You see them through their senior year in high school and where they're going to go to school or where they're going to go to college. But he was a huge recruit for them, but he has not really lived up to the bill by any means, at least yet. I know that people, I'm sure some Oklahoma fans trying to wonder who else they could throw in instead of Rattler, because he's been tough. He didn't have a great year last year. Didn't look excellent this year, or hasn't looked excellent this year either. And Lincoln Riley is undefeated, but I'm sure he feels a little fortunate to be there. On the Texas end of things, I'll tell you what, that Arkansas loss continues to look better and better week after week. Now, I know that the Georgia loss for Arkansas wasn't a good one, but it's Arkansas teams for real. And you look at some of the teams Texas has beaten, TCU, Tech, and Rice, sure, whatever. But then is that, the Raging Cajuns, right? What are they right now? So they're 4-1 as well, and they're going to be one of the top teams in the Sun Belt. But either way, Texas has played some good squads, and they played them well. I think that as I look at this game, I don't know how anybody can lay the points with Oklahoma. I'm not saying to you that Oklahoma's not going to win this game, and I'm not saying to you Oklahoma can't cover. But I think if you're going to bet Oklahoma, your best bet's to bet them maybe live on the money line as a small dog if Texas scores first, scores a touchdown first. To me, it's dog or pass. I mean, it's obviously pass for me because I didn't bet it. But with all this said, this could be a spot where Oklahoma makes a statement or at least tries to. But if you've watched this Oklahoma team this season, they've been quite an enigma. And really the enigma's really been on the offensive end. It's tough to say they're about a 5-0 team, especially a team that's won their conference games. But man, this is not the Oklahoma we're used to. And like I said, this team is Radler's been the crowd has not been on his side by any means. Now, granted, this is one of those this is a neutral game, right? The game they have every year. I'm pretty sure. Red River Rivalry, I believe is the cool kids say. I know I'm kind of talking in different directions here, but overall it's a pass for me. With 3, I definitely can't bet Texas. I think at 3.5 I could have. But again, my biggest concern here is that maybe at some point in this season, Oklahoma's going to get things right. And you're going to be like, whoa, this team for real. And it just kind of seems like they've been sleepwalking through the season and, just getting wins as they need to. And in reality though, if they do that this game where they sleepwalk through the game and end up with a win, it is likely that they'll probably cover then with a small number of 3, right? So, I'm going to stay away. I think Thompson's been great for Texas. Since they made that change over to him, and Bijan's been incredible, as I mentioned. So I'll stay away, and I lean at 65. I lean the under, or in favor of the under. I know that this rivalry always ends up scoring a lot of points, but I think these defenses are better than folks give them credit for, and I lean that under actually. Okay, so another game to discuss. Let's see, what do we have here? I will talk on, so Iowa, Penn State. I'd say it's a small dog here, right? 2-ish. Yeah, so Penn State +2, 2 5-0 squads. Yeah. Okay, so hold on one second. Now, to me, and I know this might sound a little silly, I actually think the wrong team's favored here, but it's not by a lot. I think Penn State should have been money line -115 here, and instead you can get Penn State -105. So it's not like I have this big edge, but I do believe that Penn State should be favored in this game now, and it's for a few different reasons. One of the main ones is Iowa was gifted a game by Maryland last week. Tua's little brother threw 5 picks himself. Their backup threw a pick as well. I think they lost a fumble. It was 7 turnovers, just a ridiculous game. And you got to give credit to Iowa's defense, but Penn State is not going to be this willing to give the football away. And it's going to impact, my big thing here is I don't know how Iowa is going to score in this game. So they play a Kent State defense that isn't very good by any means. They only score 30. They end up scoring 24 against Colorado State. And then Maryland, the 51, is an enigma because they were gifted 7 turnovers. I mean, they were just gifted points. So Penn State, on the other hand, this team, I know this sounds silly. I think they're the better offense. I think they're the better defense. And you can get points with them on the road. I think there's value there. And I like who Penn State's played. I think that they've proven they can score against a lot of different teams. And I think that defensively they've been excellent. They haven't given up more than 20 points, and they've played some good offenses. Iowa by no means has a good offense. Iowa is going to win their games with their defense, and the defense is going to set their offense up. I mean, Petrus doesn't even have 1,000 passing yards. So with that said, I think you can look at the team total for Iowa under. I guess it would be. Let me look at what that is. Hold on. So yeah, because I mean, the more I think about it, it would make the most sense to go in that direction with Iowa's team total under. And I know it's going to be a super low number. Yeah, see, now it's 2.5. Like, to me, that's almost ridiculous. I mean, you can get Penn State on the money line now plus 110, which is, to me, it's almost an auto fire. I already have my committed games. I don't really like to bet more than 5 games in a given day. So I'm likely going to end up staying away. But woof, Iowa's team total under 21.5. That is juicy. Oh my God. I'll tell you this, strongest lean of the video by far. It'll probably be a spot I might end up firing on. But I mean, for those that are looking for action, some of these primetime games, I'll just put here as a strong lean. Iowa team total under 21.5. That is a massive. I know it sounds like a low number, but Penn State hasn't given up more than 20 all year, and Iowa's offense is anemic. Like, Penn State would have to give them a free score. They'd have to. Like, there'd have to be a pick six thrown by Clifford, who's been good with the football this year. They would have to fumble a ball. They'd have to give up a kick return or a punt return for, again, something. They'd have to be helped out because this Iowa offense is not going to get there on their own, unless, again, some weirdness happens. So, yeah, I mean, I really like that look. I didn't realize that it got steamed heavier in Iowa's favor, but, yeah, I really like that look. So, hope use that information as best you'd like. Okay, so Texas Tech, TCU. Tell you what, it was not the best loss for TCU last week. I know it was against Texas, and not to say it was bad, but it just felt like the type of game that TCU always finds ways to win. Like, TCU always seems to have Texas's number, and they started out decent, and you'd figure it was a game they might have been able to close, but they didn't. I don't know what that does to a team's psyche. Now they're a -2 on the road. And I'll be honest, this is another spot where I kind of have as a point flip. So lean Texas Tech at home. But this is definitely not a spot I'm firing on. This Texas Tech team is a pretty overrated 4-1. I look at their wins, right? And it's, Stephen F. Austin, and it's FIU, and we know how bad FIU is, and Houston, and nice win against West Virginia last week, but, I don't make a lot of it. And then they get absolutely trounced by Texas. I have issues with this team's defense, and TCU's offense under Duggan has been tough to watch. And it's been kind of crazy to see a Patterson-ran team that hasn't been excellent by any means on the defensive end. So I think when you look at a total like this, drop down to 60.5, you could argue for some value on the over. I mean, Texas Tech's going to at least try to play a little up-tempo. And TCU under Patterson doesn't exactly play slow. And again, I think that both teams are very susceptible defensively. My issue is that both teams kind of lack big play offense. They're not trying to score a lot of points, which is why it makes it a little difficult for me to like anything in this game. It's one of those games where you have just a bunch of arrows going in different directions. I mean, show's been okay for Tech. They have almost no running game. And again, it's a tough offense to watch. And even TCU's offense at times, Duggan, man, obviously he's a good little dual threat, but he's tough to watch at times too because he can be wildly inaccurate. Their run game's okay. There's just nothing that really sticks out to you offensively about these teams. But defensively, there's definitely holes to be had on both squads. So I get why the total's 60, but I'd call it a slight lean in favor of the over. But there's just so much inconsistencies on offense here. And then as far as the spread, I think this game's a complete coin flip. So with that in mind, I have to slightly lean Texas Tech, but by no means do I love it. So completely stay away spot for me. But I wish you guys the best of luck however you decide to bet. Okay, and then an interesting one, which was asked by the Run Pure crew, Marshall and Old Dominion. So Marshall's a team I've bet on a few different games this year. I think it was a few. I know I bet them when they play ECU. And Old Dominion is if they are anything, it is a very bad defense. So I think as I look at this, and Marshall's 21, God. And this total is now dipped to 62.5. So I will say this. Old Dominion's defense is horrible. And that goes kind of like without saying. If you've seen this team play, that they've let basically bad offenses fire up points on them. UTEP, to name one of them. Liberty did what they wanted with this team. Liberty's got a good dual threat quarterback, though, and Buffalo did what they wanted against this team offensively. Marshall has now lost 3 games in a row. And against the Middle Tennessee loss was a bad one. I will say that. The East Carolina game, I don't look at that as a terribly bad loss. They were up big in the fourth, and they just kind of had the yips, and just ECU needed certain miracles to happen, and they did. I don't look at that as a bad loss, all things considered, because ECU, I think, is a decent squad. App State, definitely not a bad loss. It was close. Middle Tennessee, I do look at as a fairly bad loss, though. And so, to me, the struggle for this Marshall team, especially different from how they were last year. If you guys remember, this was one of the top teams in Conference USA last year. Has really been their defense, right? The defense has really let them down. The good news for them is Old Dominion has been tough to watch really on both sides of the ball, but their offense has looked decent. So I look at a total here that's dipped down to 62.5, and that's a lot of points off the open. And I have to slightly lean the over, primarily because I think Marshall, if there's one thing Marshall does, it's that they score against bad defenses. I mean, you saw them score against Middle Tennessee. You saw them score against App. And here's the thing, App's not even a bad defense, and they were able to score against them. ECU, they did whatever they wanted against ECU through 3 quarters. You would figure they do what they want here. And Grant Wells has been okay. He's elevated his game a little bit. I mean, I'm not a Grant Wells guy. I remember watching last year, and I thought he was wildly inaccurate on many throws that were very, very, very much so there for them. This is still a run-first team, and they really lean on Rasheen Ali to do a bunch of their work inside. And Gamage has been good on the outside, wide receiver wise, but they, I think overall you probably get enough points from Old Dominion here. It's just a matter of how many points you end up getting from Marshall. This is a typical spot where you'd figure Marshall gets you a 40 burger themselves, and then can Old Dominion get you 20? I think it's possible. I mean, Old Dominion's gone over 20 in back-to-back games, but against worse defenses. But again, when you look at what Marshall's done defensively, they haven't by no means been a good defensive team. So I know that you might still have that perception, or people might still have that perception that this is a good defense, but just hashtag watch the tape. They've been tough to watch defensively. So yeah, I think you can get enough points. I think overall, slightly leaning the over at 62, which has more to do with the fact that Marshall's not going to slow themselves down. They need big wins at this point. And Old Dominion has been okay offensively and bad defensively. This game might play a little slow, though. These are 2 slower tempo teams, which does hurt when you want to bet it back and over. But as far as the spread goes, I want no part of that. I think Marshall's got a statement game coming. I just don't know if it's this one. It could very well be against their next 2 games with North Texas and FIU. So if they want to make a statement here, yeah, they'll win by 4 scores. I just don't know if they want to. I think at this point, this team just wants to get wins because they've really been struggling in that category recently. Okay, so you see, this is almost comical, right? You see what I love, and this dude's background sports talk. Your job betting sports is supposed to be finding value. Okay. Sometimes you have more value in spreads. Sometimes you have more value in totals. With that said, you line games at your numbers, and then you fire on spots where you have 3 to 4 point gaps. If you eliminate totals from betting, you've basically taken off half your betting options. Now, you might be somebody who's not good at betting totals, and that's fine. Just tip the cap and wipe out half the slate. This might be like the same person that says, I don't bet heavy favorites. You basically wipe out that portion of the board when you're choosing to make that decision. It's not necessarily wrong. It's just that there's issues logically with how that makes sense. I think that you can find value in any type of wager. You can find a lot of value in derivatives. You can find value in team totals. You can find value in first quarter spreads, halftime bets. It doesn't matter. If you have an edge, as Hey Rich G says, winning bet's a winning bet. You got an edge, bet it. Okay. I think that everybody's got their own opinions, and that's fine. I'm not here to trash anybody in specific, and I don't mean and I by no means meant to say Jake in particular, is a bad sport, but I could use these opportunities to try to, teach you guys in some way or another that, there's no sports betting is not necessarily black and white, right? There's a lot of gray areas and a lot of areas where you can find value. It doesn't always have to be spreads, right? Because I'd argue just to the point of, if somebody majority bets spreads and not totals, just quit and stop wasting your time. Because in reality, you should be looking at all avenues for betting options. Okay, if you really trim down your betting scope, you basically trim down your ROI options, right? So, needless to say, just my 2 cents. Okay, let's see. Oh, I'll be honest, Chip. I haven't been following baseball. I'm sure Joey Work has an opinion on it. I mentioned in Discord yesterday for Run Pure folks that I didn't understand how the Giants were an underdog at home. The Giants were the best team in baseball all year long, and somehow they were an underdog at home. So I did like that spot, but I like to focus on 2 sports. I know that I occasionally dip into Major League Baseball during playoffs, but we got Joey holding it down there, so I'll likely stay away. Okay, so did I miss? What did I miss? Okay, so Michigan, Nebraska. That's another small line, right? I think it's like 3. Let me see. Yeah, so 2.5. So I'll tell you what. Scott Frost, Nebraska's team finally looks okay. Be a nice little game on in prime time tonight on ABC. And I know that Nebraska's 3-3, but they've looked like a really good 3-3. I know that might sound silly, but they actually have. I don't like the fact they came off the huge win. I always hate backing teams off a gigantic win, against an in-division opponent. And Michigan. So my thinking here is you got a total of 49.5, and I think that I struggle to believe or understand how Nebraska is going to consistently score in this game specifically. So I look at how this team scored and who they've scored against, right? So they get 22 against Illinois. They get about 20 against MSU, 16 against Oklahoma. They only grab 28 against a Buffalo team. We'll eliminate the Fordham game. And then last week, it becomes an offensive showcase against an inferior, Northwestern team. I look at Michigan's defense, and this defense is the real deal. And when you look at this total, you're going to more or less need like 24.5 from Nebraska. I think that's probably their team total because it's probably a 27. Yeah, it's probably like 23.5 or 24.5 with the way this line's moved. Yeah, I don't know how Nebraska gets there. Like Michigan would have to do them favors for them to get over that number specifically. So, yeah, call it a lean on my end. Not going to be a game I bet by any means. This line would have to move a little more for me to want to bet it. Like if more Nebraska steam somehow came in and Michigan becomes like a pick'em, yeah, I'll just bet Michigan. But I think that at this number, with the way it's moved, I think it does make sense to back Nebraska under their number, which I think should be 23.5. I don't have it in front of me, but I think it'll be 23.5. So that would be the direction I go in. Did I miss any other? Let me see. I don't think I missed any. Yeah, I'll tell you what, because I'm looking through the chat here, wasting time. If I missed your bet, just feel free to post it here, and I'll start talking about it. Okay, so thoughts on Illinois plus 11. Okay, Illinois. This is a team I absolutely can't stand. So I backed them last week versus Charlotte. Okay. When I say I backed them, I didn't really back them. I backed Charlotte under their team total, which I guess is indirectly backing Illinois. Brandon Peters absolutely sucks. Like, he is terrible. And the shame of it is he was actually decent before he got injured. What was it, last year or the year before? I remember him. Like, he this offense had life with him at quarterback. But now, not even near the same. I have no idea how Illinois scores in this game. They were bailed out against a Charlotte team last week because their running back went absolutely wild. Chase Brown, who hadn't rushed for like more than 60 or 70 yards in a game, ran for 220 last week or something like that, 200 last week. And look, we know Charlotte's defense is below average. Wisconsin is not going to let this dude run rampant. And Brandon Peters is I assume he's playing today. I can't imagine he's not. And I'll be honest, I don't even care if what's his name's playing. What's his name? Not Grant. Graham Mertz. I don't even know. To me, it doesn't even matter if he's playing. So this total is 42, and that's probably where it should be. I'm not going to bet that under or over. But what I do personally like is, again, I just have no idea how Illinois scores in this game. Illinois can't score against like bad defenses. And Wisconsin, if there's one thing they do well, is play defense, right? So, you look back at this team's schedule and they beat Nebraska week 1. And since then, it's been woof levels. I'd argue they should have beat Purdue and they didn't. Maryland game was winnable and they lost. UTSA, they should have never lost. So this team has just been underachieving. And maybe you're getting that padded into the number here, which is why it's so low. But I look at a team that hasn't gone. The Charlotte game, they should have never ended up with 24. They just they had 2 big, huge runs and good setup for field position wise. And Charlotte did them favors as well. Wisconsin's not going to be that willing. And sure, Mertz could turn the ball over, but Illinois is playing this slow brand of football and they're playing very well defensively. This game likely plays under, but I think you have a better shot of Illinois going under their number. The problem is that Wisconsin and their issues on offense could pose issues here for the way Illinois is going to score, because time of possession is a big thing, right? And if Wisconsin has a few different 3 and outs, it'll mean their defense is going to be on the field longer. This has the very likelihood of a game that has just a lot of punts. And look, 1 or 2 plays could break and that'll be the difference. But so when the total is 42 and the team's a 12-point favorite, I guess Illinois' team total is 13.5 maybe? Let me see if I can find it. So if it's 12, I guess their total has to be 13.5, right? Let me see, game props. So 15.5. Yeah, I know it's a low number, but I do have a strong lean in favor of that under. I just think overall it makes too much sense. I just don't know how this team's going to score today. They're going to really need gifts from Wisconsin. And again, Mertz could do that for them, but man, Brandon Peters is just such a bad quarterback. And he's going to be in so many 3rd and longs today. He just has happy feet. I don't know if it's because he's been dealing with, ghosts back there because of his injury. I don't know what it is, but he just looks like a whole different quarterback from what I used to see from him either the year before or the year before that, where he actually looked like an efficient passer. His offense looked decent with him at quarterback, and now it's quite the opposite. And without them being able to get extra chunk volume out of the running backs today, with how good Wisconsin is up front, it's just going to be a game of a lot of 3rd and longs for Illinois. And yeah, I know it's a low number, 15.5, but I just don't know how they get there. So yeah, under team total Illinois would be my look. Let me see. So where's look, guys, our boy Jake's back. We'll see how today goes. It's one day, my man. How about you see how the year goes? Okay, so let me try to see if anybody mentioned anything. Let me see. Giants look at today. Okay, so Liberty minus 19. No, I didn't mention it, Socratar. So I'll be honest. So Liberty was a team I backed last week live at halftime versus who were they playing last week? They play UAB, I think. Yeah, they played the Blazers, I think. Yeah, so I bet them at halftime because I was able to get them at a pick 'em. And I actually liked – it was a game I was watching, so I liked what I saw from them in the first half. And I thought that I was getting good value. I know that I wasn't getting good pregame value, but I thought I was getting good value on UAB's offense looked lifeless. And Liberty was at least showing signs of promise. And look, I've liked their quarterback for a while now. Willis has been great. And look, they're still being coached by, an SEC caliber coach. So this is a good squad. Now, my issue is Middle Tennessee has shown some bright spots offensively. And remember, this is a team that typically is good offensively, right? We know Liberty plays at a quick tempo. Middle Tennessee plays at a quick tempo. It's actually a game where I really would lean the over at this new number at 58.5. I know that Liberty plays good defense, and Liberty's almost like a borderline mid-major at this point, right? I'm a borderline mid-major, a borderline Power 5 school at this point with how good they've been over the last year or two. They've been really trouncing teams within their division. This could be a spot. I personally have liked what I've seen from Middle Tennessee recently. This is a team that years ago had a really good offense and they kind of like, I guess, got the yips for quite a few games in between years. And recently, though, they've kind of figured things out offensively. They looked really good against Marshall. Who else did they look really good against? They looked, Charlotte. If you guys remember, we bet that game over. That went over easily. I think overall, even they were able to get a few scores against Virginia Tech, who's been a great defense this year. So overall, I think that if you want to back it, I think that you could do it a few different ways. I think that first of all, I lean the over at the new number, which is low because it's dipped down to 58.5. I think that you could think about targeting Middle Tennessee's team total over. I know Liberty's pretty stout though, I would just lean the game over because I think Liberty can get you a lot today, and I think Middle Tennessee can help as well. What's up, Richie? Topo, UConn. I'll tell you this: if you're Toronto, if you're betting this game, I mean, there are so many games on the board. Man, not going to be betting this game. I can promise you that. You'll tilt yourself watching this game. It's just going to be bad offense, bad defense. I guess if you're into it, sure, but yeah, I'm gonna be away from that game. Georgia blows out Auburn. You're probably right. I think the only and I'm tagging my own self, but this has got to be Jason from our end. Okay, if I had to guess, people might convince themselves that Bo Nix is a better home quarterback. And his numbers are good at home. But here's what I know about Bo Nix. I know that he's a turnover machine. And I know that Georgia just turns everybody over. Like, that defense is so good. And sure, Bo Nix could run around back there and maybe make a play or two. But I'll tell you what, if Bo Nix is doing a lot of running around in the backfield, he's going to make a few mistakes because it's just death taxes and what he does. So, it was a nice win for them last week. Nice little comeback win in with Death Valley. Were they in? I think LSU, maybe LSU. Yeah. So, good win for them. This is a whole nother animal. I think that you can continue to fade Georgia if you want. If you've been doing that, I mean, can't have a lot of money left. And this defense is just so good. And look, again, I think it's really, to me, that handicap on that game is really what you think about Bo Nix, because the Bo Nix I know, when he plays really good defenses, home or away, he's a turnover machine. Okay, so now, you may be a little biased in favor of Auburn, and you may be biased, I'm not saying anybody specifically, but I'm saying people might be biased in favor of Bo Nix. And if you are, it's probably because you think he plays well at home, and it's probably because you think he can do enough to keep his team in it, or you think Auburn's defense can do enough to keep their team in it. This Georgia team has just been a machine, and I'm not trying to step in front of them. Now, I'm not going to bet Georgia myself today, but I'm definitely not going to step in front of that team. They have to show me somebody can score against them before I'm going to start betting against them. I mean, I think it's just silly at this point to be fading Georgia. Let me see. What else was here? Why is this Michigan State number going down? Do people really buy into Rutgers? Rutgers defense is for real. Perfect rotation. I'm not sure how much you've watched this team, and I can't bet them because they're in my state anyway, but this defense is for real. So why it's going down, it probably has more to do with, I'm sure folks think Rutgers might slow Michigan State down, but nothing crazy. But I think that Rutgers' defense has been for real, really happy. Georgia Tech, Duke. If you guys remember last year, Duke was a team I bet a lot last year. I loved what I saw from that team. I think that the issue with Duke last year was they just turned the ball over so much. But offensively and defensively, the team was a machine. And they have a bad game against North Carolina last week, but nothing to North Carolina is obviously with Howells going to be one of the better teams in the ACC. Georgia Tech, though, give credit to them, as they've kind of revamped. I think the head coach is in the third year of this program, post triple option. And they've kind of made some strides. This team is by no means good. But look, you're laying 4.5 here. This to me is just a completely pass game for me. I'll be honest, I haven't watched a lot of Duke football this year. There are certain teams that I find that I like to watch because I feel like I see certain things that maybe the market's not seeing on them. Duke has just been, they've been a tough team to predict early on. I mean, they've had such a soft schedule. They play Charlotte, who's Then they have the FCS game, Northwestern, who's terrible, Kansas, who's terrible, and they get blown out against North Carolina. At least Georgia Tech's had some substance, even though they're 2-3. I mean, they've had some substance at least, and they have a more well-balanced offensive attack, in my opinion. And let's not forget, I mean, Georgia Tech did actually somehow beat North Carolina. They hung in there with Clemson. So I just think if we talk strength of schedule, Georgia Tech's had it tougher and they've played better, all things considered, even though they have less wins. So small number, I'll call it a slight lean in favor of Georgia Tech, but I don't love it by any means. Definitely not in the mood to fade Duke either. So, take that for what you will. Okay, so Rutgers a lot better than people think. Rich, I completely agree. I thought I missed a game. Did I miss a game? MSU Rutgers. Did I talk on MSU? I talked a little bit on MSU Rutgers. So I'll tell you what, B-Rad. I'd love to give you advice here. I've watched so little of San Jose State this year. I think I've seen one Colorado State game. So I'm not going to be able to give you anything of substance. I remember last year San Jose State's offense was the bee's knees, as the cool kids say. But I really haven't watched them this year, B-Rad. I don't want to put you in the wrong direction. So I will just let you know that I have no indication on that game whatsoever. And I don't want to steer you wrong for the wrong reasons. Okay, I guess last I could talk on is this Maryland Ohio State. Let's see the current number. So total 71.5. Ohio State minus 21.5. Woof. I mean, that feels like such a big number. And I know that Maryland looked like complete shit last week, right? But this team still has good weapons offensively. I think that. Wow, I mean, as I look at this, like their team total to me makes a lot of sense for Maryland. I want to be clear, like I'm not in love with this Ohio State squad. Like I know that they're like probably the lone hope left in the Big Ten to like make the BCS, but I think that they've gotten fortunate this season. I mean, they give up 31 in Minnesota, who's been terrible. Oregon rolls on them for 28. Tulsa's and they still score 20. And I say they're for a mid-major. Akron is just blah. And then Rutgers, who sure they blow them out, but Rutgers, if there's one thing Rutgers can't do, it's really score with efficiency. Their defense has been good. I think that they got a little exposed though in that game. I mean, for obvious reasons. Ohio State's attack is for real. There's no doubt about it. But I think it feels like Maryland's getting like no respect, and their offense has been, I mean, really good this year. Like I said, I know that last week was a bit of a hiccup, but I like what I've seen from this team. They play fast. Again, Tua's little brother's been incredible. With Talia, is that pronounced Talia? Either way, he's been good, and I think that they could just ride his coattails, and it wouldn't surprise me. So based on this spread, I would figure their team total would be like 24.5-ish. Yeah, so their team total is 24.5, and I'm sure you can get 23.5 at some spots. Man, that is a nice spot. I think Maryland definitely gets you at least 20 here. I guess the problem is going to be is can they get you the extra points there? But so that would be my lean, would be Maryland to go over their team total 24. If you were looking for something. Okay, so I don't know about money line crypto. I think that they get 20, and the question is, do they get the extra 3 or 4 points for that to go over? And I know that Maryland may be down their wide receiver B-Rad, but to me, I mean, it shouldn't matter that much. I mean, yeah, it's I guess kind of a deal, but I would figure, to me, college, don't get me wrong, like unless you got like a top draft pick wide receiver, I feel like you can plug and play a lot of these guys. A lot of these teams have a lot of good recruits. Maybe not, obviously Maryland doesn't get as many good recruits as like Iowa State does, but to me, I would think this offense would still find ways to move the football and get themselves there, or to 20, and then will they get you the rest? Okay, so we are 5 minutes away from starting. Just ignoring me. Let me see. Hold on. What'd you say, Jay? They suck. Late 13. Late 13.5. Late 13.5 first half. Oh, you're talking Iowa State, I guess? Yeah, I guess laying the points with Iowa State, which is not crazy. You look at the spot, right? And And how often do you see this, right? A team in Ohio State that blows out a team the previous week, and a team in Maryland that gets blown out the week before. Okay, I guess it's got to be my father talking. I just like, for me, I guess it could be him. And if it is him, like I said, the only thing I would say is it's not very common to really want to jump at a team that lost by 40, and they're playing a team that won by 40. And then you come back the next week and then you lay 3 touchdowns with them, in the next game. So not exactly something I'm personally for, but I don't blame it. I can't argue that Ohio State's been good. I want to be clear, it's not a spot I'm backing, but I think if I was going to bet it, I would bet Maryland to go over their team total. Okay. All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching. We're about to kick off these games. I hope you guys found the content helpful. Gave you 3 bets at the beginning of the show. And ran through some other games as well based on questions. Wish you guys all the best of luck with all your bets. As always, gamble responsibly, stay safe. I will be back back tomorrow on the Run Pure end, talking a little NFL. So until then, stay safe, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Run Pure.